So among the 18 Trump aides indicted in Georgia this week are two attorneys with ties to the state of Colorado, John Eastman and Jenna Ellis. Eastman is currently representing the state's GOP in an elections lawsuit, while Ellis is an advisory fellow in constitutional law and policy at the conservative Centennial Institute at Colorado Christian University. According to Axios, the criminal conspiracy outlined in the 98-page indictment is drawing parallels to election tampering in Colorado and showcases the state's ties to the Trump campaign's push to overturn the presidential vote. Joining us now, Colorado's Secretary of State Jena Griswold. She's also chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State. Thanks so much for being on this morning. I guess first, I'd love your take on this indictment and the parallels that we were just drawing, but the indictment overall.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me on. Welcome. I want to say hi from Colorado and Boulder. And I think my overall take is it's a step in the right direction for justice for the American voters. Make no mistake, Donald Trump's attack trying to steal the presidency was a direct attack on this nation and every voter in the country. So I think it's crucial that he is held accountable because we are still dealing with the aftermath of what the 2020 attempted stealing of the presidency has been.
And we're still dealing with, I would say, countless Americans who believe the lies that Trump has put out there, and those named in this indictment and others who are still helping him along the way. So we have an electorate, we have a population that doesn't have the full picture of what is going on. Describe the situation in Colorado as it pertains to this indictment.
Well, you mentioned the election security breach, and a big part of the Georgia indictment focuses on the actions around Coffee County in Georgia. But Colorado had election security breach 5 months afterwards when Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters, working with many of the people in Trump's circle, including Mike Lindell, compromised her own voting equipment to try to prove the big lie. I acted swiftly and addressed the situation and then led the first piece of legislation in the nation addressing insider threats. So one big takeaway, specifically for the upcoming 2024 election, is that states have to recognize that these insider breaches that are being fomented by the radicalization of some election workers in this country are a true threat, and they should act swiftly, quickly. The clock is running out to make sure that their security protocols are ready to go for these types of new evolving threats.
You know, Secretary Griswold, it seems that so many Republicans, unfortunately, are just acting in a way that undermines and will undermine confidence in their own election process. It seems so short-sighted. I had a friend who runs elections in an area of Florida who wanted me to ask you about GOP states that are actually pulling out of ERIC, the cross-state data sharing program that only encourages best practices, that only ensures actually that the voting is more secure than ever.
That's exactly right. ERIC is a cross-state data sharing to make sure that we have the most accurate list possible and to make sure that if there is an instance of double voting, which Republicans say they care about, that we know and can be able to prosecute and take adequate action. But I think, Joe, the bigger picture is that all the supposed integrity laws that are being passed across the nation are really just political. What we are seeing is Republican secretaries of state turn away from actually the best practices to secure the vote and really embrace the party line. make no mistake, these prosecutions we're seeing, both the federal and the Georgia prosecution, are focused on the events around the stealing, the potential stealing, the attempted stealing of the presidency. But there are continued efforts to attack American democracy. And there are way too many Republicans who are still not saying anything or, in fact, spreading the disinformation that is destabilizing American democracy and elections.
Secretary Griswold, can you quantify that? I mean, I know that secretaries of state are on the front lines of protecting democracy. And in the 2022 election, there was a lot of attention paid to Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, ensuring that those states stay in Democratic governor's control, also Secretary of State control in Pennsylvania, in Michigan and Arizona, and in particular. But from what you're saying, it suggests that there's a lot of Republican secretaries of state that are out there now that are posing a threat to fair and free elections. Can you quantify this in any way or give us a sense of what the scope of that problem is like?
The good news is we are winning the fight against the destabilization of democracy. So leading up to the 2022 election, there were election deniers running in almost every battleground state in the nation as Secretary of State. Those states stopped them. There are now people in the battleground states who will stand up for the right to vote and for the ideal that every eligible Republican, Democrat, and unaffiliated deserves to have their voice heard. At the same time, there are now 6 election denier secretaries of state. There are 150 election deniers disgracing this country in Congress. There are 6 in the U.S. Senate, and they're walking through state legislatures across the nation. And so, from my perspective, we're bracing for what is coming. We are preparing for a surge of AI-boosted disinformation. Election officials are getting ready for a wave of threats and political violence. To put this in context, why the prosecutions are so important is that we have to see justice served to make a clear statement of what is acceptable in American politics. The ongoing attack on democracy will not stop unless those who have incited it are held accountable for their unlawful and criminal actions.
Colorado Secretary of State Jena Griswold, thank you very much for coming on this morning, and thank you for your service.